Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. My name is Alejandra. I am the Artistic Director for Innersense Organic Beauty. And today we have Heather joining us from Portland. Welcome, Heather.
Hey there, Alejandra. How you doing?
I'm really good. So Heather and I are sort of like kindred souls. I feel like we walk a very similar path in two different parts of the country. So I cannot wait to hear all about you. Heather, just take it away. I want to hear all about you, your past, how you got into hairdressing and your experience. And
Yeah, thanks. So my name's Heather Greene, and I am a holistic hairstylist and educator. And I'm located in Bend, Oregon. Nobody really knows where Bend is. It's about 3 hours outside of Portland, but I still like to consider myself a Portlandian. So. But yeah, I've been in the industry for about 13 years now.
okay.
And the whole thing that got me into this more like holistic way of doing things was after about, I'd say nine years or so of doing hair, I started getting pretty severe like hand sensitivities.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, this isn't, uncommon in hair world, but I don't think we're at a point where it's talked about enough.
Mhm.
And so that's what kind of started, ignited my path to a more holistic approach to hair. And, a lot of people, I think, assume that it's the hair color because we're all aware, we don't have to be chemists to know that there's a lot of chemicals in hair color
Right.
that on the regular. And so I got pretty diligent about, wearing the gloves, and certain people would be like, well, it must be because your hands are in water all the time. And so I'd be like, okay, I'm wearing gloves every time my hands are in water. And I would still have these sensitivities happening. And long story short, it was the hair care. That was causing, it was these products, these styling products, the shampoos, the conditioners, the oils, the creams. And, anytime I would try talking to a, product rep for certain hair care lines, like, nobody knew what was causing this. The naturopathic doctors didn't know. They just knew it was something I was working with on the regular. And so that started my deep dive into this, cleaner products. That was the first thing. And, after kind of starting to look into cleaner alternatives, I was noticing these hairdressers, which I'm sure, Alejandra, you've had a similar experience. You see these other hairdressers who are doing things differently. Not only are they using different products, but they're using different color. Maybe they're embracing more sustainability practices, and just have this different kind of shift or perspective on working with their clients. And I was super intrigued, but there was no like framework or guide or map of how to go from mainstream hairdressing to holistic hairdressing. And so now what lights me up is I do still work behind the chair. I'm behind the chair about 3 days a week. And then for the rest of the week, I'm helping other hairdressers make that transition.
Yeah.
And I don't know also if this is an experience you've had, but when I made that switch to a more holistic approach, there was a couple of things by default that happened as well. More fulfillment and making more money, just to be frank and real. And so that kind of is tied in with that too. Like, not only is a holistic approach, but how do you become more fulfilled and become more profitable behind the chair as well? So that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think it's so interesting because anytime you're tapped into your own essence, I feel like the abundance comes to you, right? And so when you understand hairdressing to be more of a ritual, when you understand this as being a holistic expression, and if you look at it that way, you're having deeper connections. Your clients are leaving with more than what they expected. Your value is higher at this point. And it's something that's interesting because I don't think a lot of people necessarily, I think there's two ways you can go about it. You can desire more money and then figure out what you have to give in order to get more money, or you can actually really touch into who you are and what your essence is about, and you give that, and the money comes in that way too. And so you're constantly honoring that truth for yourself. And so, yeah, I think it is interesting that there is a huge movement going on right now. I'm so excited for our industry because there are some people who, or some hairdressers who are speaking really candidly about the harmful effects of what has been going on in our industry. And I definitely applaud you for trying to create a cohesive, outline for hairdressers to follow, because it's, I think a lot of us, especially if we've started, early on, you didn't have anybody teaching you. And that's great, because you don't always need somebody teaching you. You just need to be inspired with a few different things, and you have to see that it's working for other people, And so I think that's really cool that you're sharing that and you're showing that. And I think that the more that hairdressers are approaching our industry in a more holistic way, and if they're sharing that, or, one post about the differences, so, really makes a ripple effect in our industry. And I really, really love the direction that it's going. And so you've been using Innersense for how long now?
I think we're hitting on probably almost 3 years now of Innersense
Okay.
usage.
Yeah.
I owe a lot of credit to Innersense, because they were the first company that I found that, was as transparent as they are. And it took a while to really nail down which ingredients were the ones causing my, hand sensitivities. And, it wasn't easy. It probably took about a year of like constant, like searching on the internet and just trying to find other people experiencing the same thing. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce this word fully, because I'm just going to butcher it. It's, methyl something something zone. There's 2 different versions of this ingredient. And,
Yeah.
The ingredient has a valid use. It's to prevent bacteria growth, but it can also cause some pretty gnarly sensitivities. And Innersense was the very first line to even acknowledge this ingredient. And the fact that they were very open and transparent about, hey, here's all the stuff that we don't use in our stuff. And not only that, but here's why. Greg and Joanne are so knowledgeable. And the fact that they're hairdressers creating a clean line for hairdressers, that's what makes this line so different to me in my eyes. And, also they're not a huge, crazy huge line, but they're also not like a small batch of 3-4 products either. And
Right.
I love that, because they're still minimal, but they can accommodate to all hair types. And I just think they really set themselves apart. And so thankfully, finding Innersense, that was kind of like one of my key elements of moving to a more holistic direction and a more holistic approach. And yeah, and also one of the things I did want to touch on, Alejandra, that you mentioned that I think is worth noting again is like listening to yourself and your intuition around like the practice you're trying to create. And by default, that will equate to more, profitability usually. But I think as hairdressers, we're so focused on like, what's the right way to do things? What are other people doing? And then I'll just, recreate that exactly to a T. And then I must be successful after that,
Right.
I don't think that's how it works. And I think it's being
It
taught
doesn't.
more. It's like, listen to your gut. How do you want to engage with your clients? How do you want to create a more holistic approach to doing things? And listen to yourself and then create it. And the right clients will vibe with that and will be attracted to that way of doing things. And so I just love that you mentioned that. I feel like I need to be again.
Yeah, I think it's about practicing what you preach. I think that so often you may hear something and you may be capable of preaching it in a way that sounds right. But if you're not practicing that, then it's not going to connect. It's not going to be authentic. It's not going to hit people in a way that feels honest. It's going to feel like you're selling them a trend or something. And especially when we're talking about holistic hairdressing, we are moving in a direction where luckily our industry and more people are really waking up to the notion that ingredients, plant ingredients, benefit us on so many levels. And I think we're getting really mad at our industry for what they've blindsided us with,
100%.
what we've sort of believed in our industry without even questioning, and I think luckily there's people who've been in our industry for so many years and 40 years in the industry, and they are still practicing in the same way. And, and that's all good for them, but at this point, we don't have to actually put our bodies through any of this anymore. We don't have to, inhale some of these ingredients. We don't have to do that. And on the flip side, we actually get to be inspired because we are using ingredients that are from the earth. And I know that for me, when I shop at the farmer's market and I bring my produce home, it feels so much better than when I buy it from the conventional store. There's something different about it. It's like you get more inspired to cook in a different way. And I feel the same way for Innersense, knowing that there are raw plant butters and that, that everything is sourced with such integrity. It's like, it makes you want to engage with the ingredients more. So it's such a fun thing, I think, for hairdressers to get to know Innersense, because it sort of awakens all of their senses, what we're smelling, how we're feeling it, how we're explaining it to people, what we're seeing, the transformation. So I love that. I love that you're, on that path and that you're sharing that. Who are some of your, I've been meaning to ask, some of the people I talk to, but who are you most inspired by, and who kind of helped you transition on this journey too? Because, I'm curious, who is inspiring you now, who inspired you then, and is your community just continuing to grow? Because I know that mine certainly does within like-minded people, but.
Yeah, 100%. Just to be totally transparent, like, when I was wanting to shift in this direction, I wouldn't say there was one singular person that was doing it all that I want, that I wanted to emulate to the T. There was people that embraced different elements. And so I kind of felt like I was like taking and puzzle piecing this approach together, one person I'm always super inspired by is Jane, the owner of Salon. I'm no like razor cutting, master by any means, but I started seeing her become very transparent about how, these chemicals and toxins, like her body just wasn't taking this toxin burden anymore. It wasn't working out. Yeah. And so seeing what she was kind of dabbling in, and then, it's like, once you start finding people, you find others as well. And I'd say right now though, presently, all these stylists in the Innersense community is huge. That everyone's pretty like-minded, even though the way we practice our craft might look a little bit different from stylist to stylist or salon owner to salon owner. There's a lot of common ground with what we're trying to do here. And so I would just say, just finding more and more Innersense peeps. Like these are the people I'm trying to connect with, because they get it. We've all been, maybe everybody hasn't had like strong skin sensitivities or whatever, but we appreciate what Innersense has to offer, and really value what this company has created, what Greg and Joanne have created. The other thing too you had touched on was, enjoying going to the farmers markets and finding a lot of value and noticing that change, right, when you're like bringing home these organic produce and everything. And it's so interesting in hair world, because you and I know there's a ton of other stylists who value that too. Like, we want more organic produce and organic foods, and value natural ingredients. We want, less toxic cleaning products at our house. We value alternative medicine and, practices, whatever. But it's like the last stop is hair world. Like, nobody knows how to take those elements and bring them into our careers as hairdressers. And until now, right? It's just starting and it's being more talked about. So it really is exciting.
Yeah. And sometimes it's all you need to do is one step. I know that I found Innersense 12 years ago. Well, actually it was like 11, I think. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that very beginning, because Innersense, they changed their system. So they don't even have records of when I started using them. And I was pregnant. I thought I was either pregnant with my son, or he was born, or like, I don't know, it was like a blurry period of my life.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to create this indoor-outdoor experience for my clients. And I knew that I wanted to create something that felt more in line with my lifestyle, right? And so bringing on Innersense, I didn't know what that was going to mean. I didn't know how much I was going to sell. I didn't need to know all these things. I brought the line into my salon, and without realizing it, it had an effect where it started to help me to understand ingredients more. So then I started to let go of this line more. It almost like organically helped me to find my rhythm without me thinking I need to find a rhythm. It was as if it just helped me find a rhythm that was authentic and true to me by having a line that supported me in that way. And so sometimes you don't need to know everything, right? You just have to make one positive change, and everything starts to take a ripple effect. Well, Heather, tell us, because there's so much more that we can talk to, of course, but tell us how we can stay connected with you and anything else that you want to share with us about what you're working on before we wrap up.
Yeah. Well, couple things. If, I think a lot of people who are watching this have probably already started this like journey into a more holistic approach. And you may not, call it, being a holistic hairdresser, holistic stylist, but, for those of you who maybe, who want to dive into a more holistic practice more so and want a few tips to do so, I would say the first thing is clean up your hair care, and Innersense again has been the predominant one to help me do that behind the chair, but clean up your hair care, really become more educated when it comes to your ingredients and what you're putting, not just on your client's hair, but what you're putting all over your hands and smelling and putting in your body every single day that you're in the salon, right? The second thing is to, don't be afraid to do things differently than our industry is doing them. Do things in a way that you feel aligned with and that you feel inspired by. And for me, that means, extending my service time that I'm working with clients, really honing in on my communication skills. And so I would say that's tip number 2. And then my last tip for peeps is to get really clear about what a holistic practice means to you and how you want to do things. Because especially if you start using the term like, oh, I'm a holistic stylist, or I have a holistic practice, yada, yada, people are going to ask like, hey, well, what does that mean exactly? Like they're usually excited and stoked, but they want to know more. And just around creating a new business, like you need to know and have this clarity. And so that would be my tip number 3, is get really clear about what creating a holistic practice means to you. And for any of the folks who might be watching this who are like, that sounds great, Heather, but like, I don't even know where to start, then please join me inside Holistic Hair School, which is my signature online course and my baby that I've been working on the last year and a half. And it's also a 15-day group coaching program. So we do have live Zoom calls and connect in real life, not in real life, but real life via Zoom. And yeah, so if you need any help, any resources, hit me up. I'm on Instagram at Heather Greene Hair. And shoot me a DM. No reason to be shy. Ask me all the questions, and I love to connect.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Heather. And thank you all for joining us today. And we will see you next week for another episode of Wellness Wednesday. Until then, stay well.
Thanks.